Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm really thankful for our fans and our students. I thought the atmosphere was terrific, and that was a big part of impacting our energy as a team. Secondly, I think the people that were least surprised about how we played were the people in our locker room. We don't have any control over how the other team plays or what they do, other than the areas of the game that we can affect them on, like the way we contest their shots or the way that we block them out. But a lot of people reacted after the game with a level of surprise about how certain individuals played, about how the team played. Our guys have an expectation that we can play well, and I think that comes first and foremost from the way that our guys feel about one another. There's genuine relationships on our team. They want to play for each other. They want to pull for each other. And then we practice hard, and we work really hard on preparation, on who we want to be, on the things that go into winning. So in terms of responding to Tuesday, it's no different than any other game from the standpoint of, we know that game's over with. The guys were off yesterday. We practiced today. We'll practice tomorrow. We'll have shoot around on Saturday. Then we play Wisconsin Saturday afternoon. It's a great opportunity for our team. There's a ton of things that we can take from our last several games, not just our last game, that we can learn from, do better, do more of, do less of, and that's what we'll focus on the next couple of days.
I kind of asked David about that. I think a lot of people saw that Baylor game and thought, wow, that was an amazing win, but that's their best. Certainly you probably don't think that's their best. There's so much higher that they can go.
Yeah, players and coaches don't look at it that way. We choose to take a growth mindset, which says I can and will grow from any experience. That's if you lose a game, you win a game, you tie a game, you can grow, you can improve. So for us to look at anything like that's our best or that's our worst, that really puts a ceiling on us, and we don't want to do that. I mean, the reality is every guy playing minutes for us right now has multiple years of eligibility remaining and has a chance to continue getting better and better this year. And so, a few people said that after the game to me, hey, that's as good as I've seen you guys play. Well, there's a lot of areas where we want to continue to grow. I know our guys want to keep getting better individually, so that's where our focus is.
After the game on Tuesday, Cam kind of talked about how you remembered the feeling after the game last year against Wisconsin. How can you kind of take that feeling with the rest of the guys who are returning in round two in this rivalry?
Well, I think, to put it simply, there needs to be a real desperation to play better than we did in that game. Now, they have a different roster. We have a different roster. Every different year is a much different team. But the one thing we can take from watching that tape, and I would say both halves, not just the second half where we gave up 55 points, is that we didn't play hard enough, we didn't compete hard enough, we didn't play with the level of grit required to beat a very good team on their home floor. And there's probably a lot of things that went into that, but certainly going into Saturday's game, our emphasis first and foremost needs to be on ourselves and having ourselves at the level of violence on both ends of the floor that allows us to play our best, because Wisconsin is certainly a tough-minded, physical, really well-coached, well-disciplined team.
You know how Wisconsin plays, so how do you guys dictate the tempo that you guys want to play at?
Well, I think you dictate tempo the same way as you do in any other game, which is running, first and foremost, cutting hard, moving the basketball, sharing the basketball. The reality is getting good shots against Wisconsin is more challenging than getting good shots against a lot of other teams. And so how does that dictate your tempo? It might mean it may take a little bit longer in the possession to get a shot that you feel like is a good one. But I think for us, again, I don't care if we're playing Wisconsin or Washington or the LA Lakers coming into town. We need to focus on ourselves and being the best version of us in all the little details that go into success, whether it's on the offensive end, on the defensive end, or who we are as a team.
We've kind of seen some versatility from the guys in the sense of like one guy, one night one guy night, next guy, another guy's big night. How do you kind of think that sort of plays into maybe, all these more experiences that these younger guys have under their belt, a full year later for them going into this game, and how that can make you more difficult to guard and get some of that?
Well, I think, every once in a while you're blessed to have a special player that is dominant in all areas, starting with scoring, but in a lot of areas. But the reality is 90-some% of teams, you have to do it by committee. You have to do scoring by committee, you have to do leadership by committee, you have to obviously do defense, by committee. Everyone's got to participate in that. And for us, listen, we believe in recruiting young kids out of high school that come in here as guys that probably don't know much about college basketball yet, but learn and grow and develop and get minutes early in their freshman year and get the opportunity to gain some valuable experience, even if it is in games where they take their lumps. And then as they get better and grow, they become guys that can add to the versatility that you speak about, because the way the game has gone, it's much less about positions, it's much more about, as I've always said, the only two positions that matter, which is on the court or on the bench. And so for us, any guy on our team can play with any other guy on our team. We can play 5 guards at one time. We can play a lot of different lineups together. Oso Ighodaro, as our tallest guy, can bring the ball down the floor or be in pick and roll. And so I think that versatility makes you harder to deal with on both ends, but it only works if guys are willing to play and pull for each other as a group, as a connected group. I did think, one of the good things about Tuesday night was our whole was greater than the sum of our parts. And what's fascinating about when that happens? All of a sudden people start saying your parts are better than they said before. And so, well, which one is it? I think it's the connectivity.
Steve is a guy that his impact on the game seems like it's hard to quantify, like points per game or shot percentage or whatever. How do you measure his success on the court?
Winning. I mean, he's a winning guy. He's a guy that does a lot of really good things for our team. He cares about his teammates first and foremost. He's a relationship guy. He has strong relationships with a wide variety of guys on our team. That sophomore group specifically that Stevie's a part of, those are some of the closest bonds I've ever seen, being in coaching for almost 25 years. Deflections, he does a great job. He's we always have a deflection champion each game. He's certainly been our deflection champion so far through however many games we played. And then I think he's getting better and better on the offensive end, attacking closeouts, being ready to shoot, and creating plays for his teammates.
So obviously your Baylor game went pretty well in a lot of some of the areas you can take from that game and to kind of tweak or improve heading into this game against Wisconsin.
It was a unique game just because of the margin at halftime. There was a bunch of stuff in the second half that we did not do well enough defensively where we want to improve. They scored 45 points, but to be honest with you, that's who Baylor's been all year from a scoring standpoint. So the way that they scored in the second half looked a lot more like every other game they've played. But I think the way that we defended in the first half counteracted that, and so we need to learn, kind of compare those two halves. I thought we defeated screens a lot better early on. Wisconsin sets as many screens as anybody, so we're going to need to do a better job than we did in the second half last time out of defeating screens. And, we got to guard the ball, as a team, because, they've got some guys, whether it's Tyler Wall, who's a very, very good player, whether it's Chucky Hepburn, who I think is, one of the best sophomores around in the country, whether it's Stephen Kroll, who obviously had a big game against us last time. They've got some guys that can really hurt you in different ways. We've got to be alert and on edge for that.
You'd mentioned that the guys kind of just have to want to play better than they did last year's game, and David even mentioned the word embarrassed and how you guys maybe felt at the Kohl Center. Do you have to kind of share some of that, just maybe that quote-unquote embarrassment, or is it simply just about the things you want to prove on that?
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up because first of all, nobody wants to win more than the players on the team. Nobody. And I don't care how diehard a fan is. I don't care how long someone's been coming to a game. The way that our guys, and I would say this is true for most players on most teams, feel after they come up short, particularly in a game. Every game is big to us, but particularly in a game that they feel like holds a lot of magnitude for everyone else. That's really tough. At the same time, as a person, there's absolutely nothing to be embarrassed about when you come up short. And I think we got to be careful to get that twisted up where it's the same thing. Certainly, there's been many games where we say, man, we're embarrassed by how we played. We need to play better. Disappointed by how we played. But that doesn't mean that we take a fixed mindset. How we played defines who we are, and it's not an area where we can grow. So, you guys asked me about last year. Last year, we didn't play well enough on the defensive end, first and foremost, before we even talk about offense. We didn't defend with enough urgency, enough grit, enough toughness, enough stick-to-itiveness, enough multiple efforts, enough violence. And so we've got to be better if we expect to win this game.
You use the word violence a lot. I know we talked about it in year one when you came last year, because you're such a calm guy, but the violence, the kills.
Yep.
Do you think that Wisconsin will be maybe shocked at how the level of violence has grown from year one to year two?
No, I don't think really any opponent is shocked by what a team does or what we do just because they watch a lot of tape. And again, it's a different roster. We certainly look at the tape from last year. I'm sure they look at the tape from last year. Certainly fans, media dwell on the result from last year, but it's a whole different team for them. It's a whole different team for us. And when we say violence, it just means playing hard. It means having tenacity. It means going after the ball. It means having an edge, having the nastiness that you need to have to be at your best. It doesn't mean fighting. It doesn't mean anything dirty. It doesn't mean any bad connotation. But I have a ton of respect for the game of football, and those guys always say the more violent team has a huge advantage. And obviously in that sport, it's literally about knocking another guy, off his feet. In our game, it's not exactly that, but there are a lot of plays out there that make it a contact sport.
I think this is the first sellout for the year, obviously big game. How is the atmosphere going to factor into Saturday afternoon?
Well, we appreciate the energy that we get from our fans. Our students give us a huge lift. There's a real connectivity between our guys and the folks that come and support our team. And so that's something that we appreciate. At the same time, our job is to take care of everything that we can control. The better we play on both ends of the floor, the more energy you create from your fans in the building. And so that's our job, to do that and to focus on everything that's under our control.
Do you have an update on Amarian at all?
He's making progress. Yeah, he's making a lot of progress. His surgery was successful. He's done a great job with his rehab. He's continuing to grow and develop. He's up to 205 pounds, which is awesome. He came in at like 180. But I don't know necessarily when he's going to return to basketball. He's still a ways away from that. He's not like running full speed or anything like that. He's been doing a lot of skill stuff that he can do in a stationary position. I told him, I said, if you don't come back handling the ball like Kyrie Irving, then something's wrong, man, because you got a lot of time to work on your ball handling. So he's done that. He's really developed as a person. People don't really care about this, but I do. Player development is personal development. I mean, he's not going to be the player that any of us want him to be until he continues to grow and become the person that he needs to be. And I give E a ton of credit. It's interesting, he's walking around today in his Assumption High School jersey, which is the school he went to his senior year. And we were watching clips the other day. He and I, we were at a meal and we were watching some clips from his senior year. The last game he played in, he had a great game. He scored 30-some points. And I said, E, man, I know you haven't scored anything like that or played like that yet in a game here, but you are night and day better as a person in terms of your growth. So he's really doing a phenomenal job with that. I would hope, Ben, that, it's December 1st today, within a month, hopefully, he's out there doing basketball activities. I don't know if that means he's going to be playing live at that point. And there's certainly the option, and probably the default option, to redshirt him if it's gone too far into the year.
Is there any update on Zach Reitzel? He's missed the last few games with some knee soreness.
Yeah, his knee's still not in a place where he can go. He's in a place right now where, with our trainer and our team doctors, they're kind of huddling up and determining what makes the best sense for him and his long-term growth and development, because he's a guy that plays through athleticism and physicality and aggression. And right now, with where his knee's at, if we were to put him out there on Saturday, he could play, but he couldn't play and do all those things the way that he's used to doing. So we don't want to put him in that position, particularly with the bright future he has.